Hi everyone, Vivek Patel here from Meaningful Ideas and Gentle Parents Unite. And I am going live because, let me make sure my microphone's working. I'm going live because I have some thoughts on limits that I want to share. Now, limits are a very tricky subject to talk about because, they're a natural part of life. And I tend to share a lot of stuff about non-coercion, collaborating with kids, not using force, not using power over them. It's really important to me, and I'm going to explain why right now. But when I talk about not using force, it doesn't mean that I'm not guiding kids. It doesn't mean that I'm not helping them set limits. It doesn't mean that I'm not discussing limits with them. Because, of course, limits are part of life. Like, in any relationship, not just with kids, but in any relationship, limits are a part of life and a part of relationships. They have to be, right? And so with our kids, same thing. But the question for me is, when I want to set a limit around something, I have to think about, philosophically, I have to think about how far am I willing to go. So I think about the tablet. For example, we take the tablet, 2 hours a day on the tablet, and then the 2 hours is up, and the bell goes, and you go to take the tablet, and you take the tablet. Now, let's say they say no. And you say, well, we had an agreement. Now, of course, it's not really an agreement because they would never actually agree to the 2 hours unless, it made sense to them, which is part of what the point is. But if it didn't make sense to them and they didn't agree to the 2 hours, it wasn't really an agreement, and they know that and you know that. But we still say we had an agreement. And they say no. Okay, so at that point, they're holding onto the tablet. And you said the agreed time is over, and you hold the limit, and you have the limit. Now what do? Take the tablet out of their hands, pry the fingers off, and then if they go and take it, you move it away, or you threaten them with a consequence then, that if they do take the tablet, you put it in the drawer, and if they take it, there's a consequence for it? Like, when does it, where does it spiral out to, right? This is the thing about enforcing. This is the thing about, limits I think are important to discuss and to work through and to figure out. But we have to have, for me, I shouldn't say we have to. Nobody has to do anything. Who am I? Nobody. But for me, the way I think about it is, right, this is a human being I'm engaging with. So I have to think about my values as well. There's a certain point where practicality takes precedence over philosophy. When things are chaotic and happening and life is very challenging, sometimes the philosophy takes a back seat. But in further reflection, there's a time when philosophy needs to take precedence over practicality. And that's when values are at stake. And for me, this is the question of enforcement for these limits then. So then where we have to know where are we willing to go to enforcing? Now, if you're on a non-coercive path, then it makes it really hard to figure out where you're going to be as an enforcer, right? So then all of a sudden what happens is, this is the hard part. This was the hard part for me, honestly. But when you kind of take that step of the enforcing off the table for yourself, oh, no, I'm not going to pry the fingers, obviously. So now what? It's not that I give up. It's so now what? That's the thing, right? That's why it's non-coercive collaborative. We have to figure out what the now what is, I remember years ago when I used to do facilitation back in the 90s, I used to do these week-long residential communication group development, kind of hippie-ish at the time, education weeks. They were amazing things. And one of the things we would do is talk about when processing an experience, you think what happened, what, and so what, and now what. Those are the three questions that we would often ask in the short form, right? What happened? What was the experience? What was everybody's personal experience, and what did we notice? And then so what? So what were the concepts at play, and what can we learn from it? And then now what? What do we do? How do we apply it so that we actually use it in our lives? What, so what, and now what? And I always taught my kid that, what, so what, and now what? So here's the thing, right? So now what, right? So if I've decided I'm not going to pry the tablet out of their fingers, but I also don't want to give up being a guide. Then now what? Then we have to figure out, and this is kind of a case-by-case thing because each person is different, each situation is different, but we have to figure out what's the conversation that we have to have. What's the learning that we need to do? Where's the connection that we need to have? How do we work? How do we collaborate on this? How do we express ourselves so that our kids understand that we have a concern, but don't feel like the concern means they're going to lose their freedom. It means that we're asking them to take it seriously because we care about them, not because we're holding it over them. And it's a relationship then, right? There's a relationship that you build where when you go to someone and say, hey, I'm not holding any power over you, but I also care about you, and here's something I see, that they wanna trust that, and so that's a challenging thing. So yeah, so maybe you do things a little at a time, like you like if you're trying to deal with screens. Maybe part of what you do is you say, well, let's try this much time and see how it works. And you say, let's try it for a week, and then after the end of the week, we'll see how it feels to everybody. And then we can readjust it. And then you share things a little at a time. Maybe you try things a little at a time. So nothing is ever stuck in stone, written in stone, but it's fluid and it's revisitable. And a lot of the times when we talk about agreements, and we make agreements and they're revisitable, it doesn't feel so, and you're going to revisit it also. It's already a plan. We're going to revisit after a week. It's less intimidating. It's like a week-long experiment is what it is. It's not a new rule. It's a week-long experiment, and we can do different experiments, and that can be something, experiments is a way of thinking about life and thinking about the way we learn. So there's so many different ways that we can frame things, frame our experience with our kids and what we're doing with them, so that it feels less coercive, it feels less like an imposition, right? And I think this is something that's so important. On my YouTube channels, there's so many experiences I have where I tell stories about experiences I've had with kids. There's the one with the kid in the dollar store who was threatening to burn people's fingers off, and how I turned the whole experience around, and then there's the other one with it's called Setting Limits with Joy, where I corralled a whole group of 10, 12 rambunctious 6 to 10-year-olds who all wanted to play with the fire, and just by using connection and some a little bit of drama and explaining things in a compassionate way, but still with some drama, I had this whole group really wanting to follow my directions. My directions were all aimed at helping them have fun safely, but didn't seem like I was trying to control them. And that's the thing, Yeah, exactly. Being able to revisit things and to be able to be constantly working through things is so important. Anyway, the main thing is the reason I preach the whole non-coercive thing is that moment of enforcement, and I want to talk about that again. When it's important for us to. I keep saying it's important for us. I don't want to tell anyone what to do. I have found it very important for me in forming a deep relationship with my child to be very clear with myself where philosophy takes over, where I'm not going to cross that line to enforce a limit. And then when I know that, because I know I do not want to coerce this person with that kind of treatment. I don't want to do that. So then I can go up to that line. I give myself a little bit of pushing, because we're parents. You have to do a little bit of pushing. But there's a point where you have to go, okay, no, this is clearly not what I want to do. I got to figure something else out. And that's when you maybe ask a question on a parenting site, or ask a coach, ask a friend, you could do community sourcing, you could search out topics. If you go to Gentle Parents Unite, the big group, and you just search for your topics, you'll probably get a lot of posts in there. There's 90,000 people in that group. That's the group that's run by Sujai Johnston and I. She was the founder of it, my wise friend and colleague. Anyway, I'm out, friends. That's it. I just wanted to share that idea. And if you'd like to also work with me personally. With Sujai and I, you can come to our membership space where we do weekly coaching calls, and we do a weekly live where I go live like this every week, but for a longer time and talk in more depth about different subjects. And it's a really great space and a great community, and you can find us at gentleparentsunite.com. And the other thing is, next Saturday, I haven't even announced it on Facebook yet, but I'll announce it here quickly to the 2 people that are watching. That next Saturday, I'm going to be doing a public workshop, my first one in a long time. The last time I had a public workshop, I had space for 100 people, and I had 250 people register. So it was very exciting. And I'm hoping something like that will happen again, even though I'm a little bit last minute. But I'm doing a workshop called Maximum Change and Minimum Shame. So it's about how to recover from a parenting mistake in quotes, of course, but still a parenting mistake with maximum change and minimum shame. So we maximize the learning and we do what we can to minimize the shame. And doing that, balancing those 2 things is an incredible, powerful thing. And I'm going to break down exactly how to do that. Well, not exactly how. It's not like a science, like steps. It's more like understanding the concepts, and then you find the best way to apply it for yourself. But that's how it is, right? So that's going to be, I'm going to announce it soon, and there's going to be a sign-up link and a Zoom link, and you can join. So that's it, everybody. Peace out. I wish you all the best. I hope this helps inspire you and maybe challenge you a little bit to really play. This is like doing those thought experiments is really important for me. It's important for me to really be clear about my values and be clear about where I'm operating from and the mindset I'm operating from. And that's it. Peace out.